This is the all-new generation of the Audi A3, and in this review also as the new sedan. We had the hatchback so far. Today it's all about the sedan here on Autogefühl, and of course all the details in exterior, interior and the driving experience, the differences hatchback to the sedan, and of course also briefly driving the VW Golf, the Seat Leon, the Skoda Octavia. How do they rate against the Audi A3 here? They are all siblings. Now more to that in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so far, and thank you so much for all long-term subscribers. Here the front of the new Audi A3, be it the hatch or the sedan, signalized here by the very large single frame grille. It's a very sporty style. This is the so-called Edition 1, so special launch model, has here a glossy finish of that front grille. There will be different styles available. The S-Line, for example, if you want it a little bit sportier, and you can also see a different light signature then, because here this is like a lying L form or some Tetris bricks or so. But in the S-Line it will be a vertical signature, so that's one step further of individualizing some trim lines over the headlamps. Interesting. Then you can see also here's another data run light in the top part, and it starts also as the main headlamp unit starts with LED, and optional then the matrix LED light for a more sophisticated high beam function. 4 meters 50, 14 foot 8 or 177 inches is the length of the A3 sedan. That means it's 15 centimeters or about 8 inches longer than the A3 hatch. And that is just the rear overhang here for a longer trunk, and of course this typical sedan shape. The wheelbase is just the same. A3 hatch, A3 sedan, and also the new VW Golf 8. They share the same wheelbase and same platform. Here the wheels, they come from 16 to 19 inch maximum. These here are 18 inch, and they are somewhat cool because they look already quite large and pretty cool. But 18 inch still guarantees that you can go for the adaptive suspension. That is not possible with the 19 inch. So if you want the best visual choice but still want to go for the most comfortable optional suspension, then go for this. There's also a base suspension available as well as a sports suspension, but the adaptive suspension will be the most comfortable. Then I think grey cars are often a little bit boring, but in this case here, the so-called Manhattan grey, together with the chrome contrast here around the windows and also these really nice large wheels, this color here looks quite striking, doesn't it? What do you think? Here also the main design line dividing in light and shadow above the door handles. I think a very beautiful job overall. At the rear here, of course with the A3 Limousine, you do not have this typical hatch style, but rather also an elegant rear ending, and they also very well integrated some kind of spoiler lip right here without adding something just additional separate layer here. So I think this is a good solution. Then more horizontally drawn, these tail lamps, also with a nice modern signature as well. 35 TFSI is the official naming for this engine. You know, their new naming structure is not logical at all. They have like certain areas where then the naming number appears to certain horsepower range. Yeah, whatever. The design here in the lower part. Is this some kind of a fake exhaust style? I'm not exactly sure. It's almost the same as with the VW Golf. I would not say it's a fake exhaust. It somehow maybe suggests it, I don't know. But the real exhaust is underneath the vehicle. And some more technology information. Interesting is that counts for the A3, for the Golf, the Leon and the Octavia. They start at the base versions with the torsion beam at the rear. So let's say a non-sophisticated rear axle. Then the more sophisticated rear axle with the independent suspension comes with the Golf and with the A3, 150 horsepower engines including. Whereas with the Leon and the Octavia, it starts above that. So you need to have more than 150 horsepower. But here, since we do have 150 horsepower today, and it is the A3, and it's also connected here with this car when you have the DCC, then you also get the more sophisticated rear axle that should give us more comfort in riding. Is that true? We'll find out soon. So the liter figure, 380 liters for the hatch, and here 425 liters for the sedan, because the boot volume is always measured then below the cover also for the hatch. So the hatch has the easier entry, and it would have more versatility when you remove that top cover and use all of it, all of the height. However, the sedan is the official bigger liter figure, and it also is longer because of the longer overhang of the vehicle. Well, the access here, you can put the luggage in like this, of course. That's easy, but then what about the vertical way? Yet it still fits like this, so you can see that works. This net, you can, secure some luggage there. When you put this one here up, there's also space for a replacement tire. But then the real crucial thing is that you have a longer trunk, and let's measure that. So this is then here length to the seats of about a meter. That's then the advantage here of the sedan. And the width here is also almost a meter. Just here the limitation is about 55 centimeters, but that's also quite decent if you compare it, for example, to, let's say, big SUV trunks or something. Yeah, so disadvantage also with the loading sill. By the way, the overall loading sill here, height here is about almost 70 centimeters. So pro and con here with this trunk, but I think it rather depends on what you want to do with it. And of course we can also flip the seats. However, there are no possibilities to do anything from here. It's just here a hanger here for some bags and stuff. We really have to go around and then flip the seats from here. 1/3, 2/3 split, or then also with the ski hatch. And then you can see there is still a gap, but they didn't install a additional boot floor here that you can use the height overall. So, however, right here to the seats as we would be driving. Here we go. It's about 1.70 meters. Now about the engines. The sedan will feature a little bit less engines than the hatchback does. It starts here. This will be the main engine, 1.5 TSI, turbo engine, 4-cylinder, 150 horsepower. And in connection to the dual clutch transmission, which is called S-tronic here at Audi, then you also get it as MHEV mild hybrid system. There's also a smaller 1-liter 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine with 110 horsepower available, as well as a 2-liter TDI with 150 horsepower. Maybe there will be some other engines later on, but not all the engines that the hatchback is offering at the moment. And of course I wanted to show you this here, the Thomas Blue A3 sedan. Audi calls it Turbo Blue. Really striking blue color, that's how I love it. And you can see this is also the S-Line exterior package, and then you can see the vertical daytime running light signature, as well as different lower bumper, and also here this honeycomb air intake style. It's of course fake in this case, just a design element. And also at the rear then you have fake exhaust, in this case real fake exhaust, case for the Autogefühl fake exhaust police. And because we have the chance to, side by side, these vehicles here, again the S-Line, you can see the different styling, especially here in the side part. And there's also this Ur-Quattro citation, so one of the first Quattro, or the first Quattro models, has a special design element right here that's been taken over, although both vehicles here are front-wheel drive only. So which styling and which color do you find best? And the Manhattan Grey and the Turbo Blue vehicles side by side. In the rear now, here you can see again the S-Line with different fake exhaust tips and different graphic right here, so you can see the comparison. But also I want to talk about more technology features, or let's say base characteristics, because what's interesting is that the weight distribution, hatch and sedan, is exactly the same. So although this has a wider rear overhang, well, then the roofline goes a little bit flatter, and that actually evens itself out. So the weight distribution, hatch and sedan, is just the same. Very interesting. However, what is different is the wind efficiency. So this here, the sedan, is more aerodynamic than the hatch. This is the car key, slim and light with a matte finish. Then door closing sound. Yeah, very solid, like that. Inside of the doors, the top part is somewhat soft touch. It's not entirely hard, but it's not super soft, but I think it's totally okay. A nice insert right there for design, and leads over to the special door handle, which is controlled from the lower entry, and that's actually more ergonomical and also looks fancy. Then more soft parts right there, also for the armrest. Then the buttons here, clicking sound. And also for, just holding it and pushing it further for the auto up and down for all 4 windows. Then we have the S-Line entry badge here, because this is here an S-Line interior package. There you can also see that the steering wheel has a perforation at the side and also an S-Line badge then at the lower part. Sticking out are these air vents. You can see it right here, already one. This is a new design element, so to say, for this generation. This is really splitting opinion because it's so prominent also design-wise. And one of the highlights here in the new A3 are the seats. You can see here, this is the sportier seat with more side support. Inside fabric, outside leatherette. So it's animal free, and also the fabric is very well sustainably sourced because it's done from PET bottles. So they use recyclable materials or recycled materials, not only for the seats, but also for the floor mats, for example, and for the material below that. So more sustainability at Audi finally here, beginning in the compact segment. Not in the upper class vehicles yet, but here in the compact segment. There are different seats also available, forms and also surfaces. You can check them out in our A3 hatch review. We have a lot of them we had on location, so if you want to see more variation, tune into that review later. Let's now get inside. Quite easy entry, and well, you feel like being in a compact vehicle, but you have an open space here due to this new interior setup. With 186 or 6'1", there's still enough headroom left. There's also an optional panoramic roof available if you want so, but here you get more headroom. It's a very comfortable seating position here also with these sportier seats. The other seat form will also do just fine, but indeed a very good comfort impression. You can also put the lower part a little bit longer of the seat. Here the steering wheel can be put in and out, up and down and so on. Easy process, also just with one hand, no problem. And from the first seating comfort impression, it's really very, very good. Now the interior overview. The first thing you see is how these air vents here stick out. They're directed towards the driver and pretty high as well. You can truly argue about this design element. Then soft touch here at the top of the dashboard, and also there's a stitching and some other beautiful elements like this Audi logo right here on this insert, and this really makes a high class impression, everything. The left side, by the way, is 12.3 inch, but that's an option. You would start with a smaller 10.25 inch digital screen, and I think, can't they just make one display on the left part? I think that should be standard, shouldn't it? On the right side, however, you always get the 10.1 inch screen. That's it. Soon more details to both screens. Then you can see here the steering wheel with the perforation at the side and also with the volume control. That's good to have it still. Left side, then you control the digital instruments, can also zoom in and out the map. You already see I have the map view at the moment. We can soon switch to satellite view. This also looks pretty cool. Then the lower part here, and this is what I like best, if you compare it also to the Golf, the Leon, Octavia, we have still a manual climate unit with nice high-class clicking sound, and this is so easy to control also while driving. I would have loved still the knobs to turn, that's even easier, but I'm still glad to have at least this here. Then in the lower part, pretty low place, is the drive select that you can switch the different driving modes. Important when you have the adaptive suspension especially. Then there are 2 USB supplies, one USB-A, one USB-C. The CarPlay strangely only works with a USB-A, not with a C. Not sure why. Android Auto also available, and CarPlay is also wireless, and then you can also use the inductive charging platform. Then in the lower part you have a start-stop engine button, then for P for the parking function, and then here on the right side there is another volume switcher, but here it's like sliding like clockwise and anti-clockwise. Okay, but at least you have one mute button here, and that's of course always good to have. Then the new DSG shifting lever, or Audi calls it S-tronic, for the dual clutch transmission. reverse, drive, shift by wire, no mechanical link, and therefore it's also faster. When you're easing the car around in the parking lot, the transition between front and reverse drive is faster. So I think it's a good idea and also makes everything cleaner right here. And then we have this cup holder area. It can be made just like one big cubby hole like this, or then again cup holes, and they're still adaptive because the sides are adaptive. And then there's this armrest. You can flip it up and have some more space underneath. Now more details to the screen. You can adjust where you want to have that. For example, when I want to have the Apple CarPlay right here, I can also put it, for example, then here at this place and have it here on the left side. But I can also put it here on this hotkey menu, so to say, that I have the Apple CarPlay access here. Integration all over the screen. And let's listen to this optional B&O sound system, 15 speakers. For a combi vehicle, one of the best systems, I think. Wow. Awesome sound indeed. Really cool. We have tested other sound systems here, also in the hatchback review. So there's one optional sound system that already sounded very good, and this one here tops it even further. But if you don't want to spend so much money for the B&O sound system, you can also go for the mid-trim sound system. It's also already quite good. Then the GPS right here, taking a look. This is the more, overview map, the basic one, which is actually better for navigating, I think. See also the CPU is better than in the VW Golf 8, where the infotainment system lags behind. So that's better with the Audi as well. And then we can also go for the satellite map system here. Let's go back then to the map right there. And here we have then the satellite view. This is of course pretty fancy to see. However, while navigating, I'm not sure if it's the best for the overview. I think you can decide that. And the other thing you can here have in the car menu, there you can see the Audi Drive Select, for example. When we switch to different driving modes, then you also have this visualization. And the virtual cockpit, really cool thing to have. You can change the view a little bit, but it will make more difference, of course, when you have the map here all over the place. Then you can also switch around when you have it in the right infotainment screen. When you deactivate the satellite view, it will also be deactivated here, or then again here the split view with the map. So whatever you want to have, however you want to have it right here. And then you can also have more options and everything controlled with your left thumb. By the way, here in the center infotainment screen, you can also change the layout of the virtual cockpit. This was this dynamic view. But if you want these rather classic gauges or in a sporty way, then we can also change it here. And then you have it right here. Pretty cool. The classic analog gauges style. Of course, and also if you want to have it with the map or in a more classic style, that's also possible. But that's not the biggest difference then to the sporty gauges. And a very nice option is also the head-up display. Yay! Here we go. So then you can see the current speed, the allowed speed. Left side also some GPS information. You will also see a display of an intersection when you approach the next intersection. On the right side, also the assistance systems view. So definitely helpful to keep your line of sight on the road. Now let's get in the rear. So here we go. And the inside of the doors here, this is, by the way, hard pack. Would have been cooler with soft materials, but the question is then, of course, always, how often would you touch this? I don't know. We can discuss about that in the comments. As for the legroom, you can see here, it works still for 4 tall adults. There's this recess right here in front of my knees. However, these sport seats are a little bit more voluminous. With the base seats, I think you have a little bit more leg room. Other than that, headroom wise, it's also still okay. No problem. I directly fit here with 1.86 m or 6'1", and it's decent seating position here also in the rear. And you see we also have this beautiful fabric material, and it's, by the way, it's quite robust here, and at the same time it feels very good and high class. And then you can also use this ski hatch here, fold it from here. You also fold the seats from here, like this, and in a 1/3, 2/3 split. And we'll take another look at it from the trunk. And probably your kids have the more modern smartphone than you have, and they can also then charge their smartphones here with the USB-C device. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the all-new Audi A3, here today as the Audi A3 sedan or the Audi A3 Limousine, or Limousine as we say in Germany. So, questions that will be solved here: is it different hatch and sedan? What about the VW Golf, Seat Leon, Skoda Octavia, and also what about previous generation to this generation? First of all, in general about this car, it is a very calm driving experience for this compact segment, so the noise insulation is really very good, and it's also an agile driving experience here. Slalom, precise input from that steering wheel, there's no dead zone area here, and it's really just a perfect feeling with the steering wheel. It's actually pretty light, it's a little bit stiffer than when you are in dynamic mode, but it's very, very well to control, so it serves you very well when you drive it here. Roundabouts, a little bit more agile, but also when parking in and out. Maybe the steering wheel could be a little bit smaller or something, but overall definitely still a good choice. The seating position is also a little bit lower here in this new generation A3, so that gives you more headroom as we shown you earlier, but also it feels a little bit sportier. And it's a really good thing that just yesterday I was driving the VW Golf 8 once more, and of course all these platform siblings, they feel somewhat similar, but yet again every single vehicle of these does have like their own unique features, and the Audi A3 to me feels the sportiest. First of all, the Golf and the A3, they share the very same wheelbase, so with the shorter wheelbase they're a little bit sportier to drive than the Skoda Octavia and the Seat Leon. And in the A3 you have the feeling you sit a little bit lower. The suspension is also set a little bit sportier than in the Golf, so the Golf feels a little bit more comfortable, cozy in a way, also with these new ergo comfort seats with the Alcantara that we've shown to you, that also great seating materials and great comfort. Here then you get a little sportier feeling. It's not that you would have like a sports car-like feeling, but definitely it feels sportier than the other siblings. And I mean, again, there's not a big comfort loss or so. River Danube here, by the way, beautiful. This car really gives you a good compromise between sportiness and comfort. We also have different driving modes. In the efficiency driving mode, for example, the throttle input is being reduced, so for better fuel economy, and also the MHEV system works in a way here. I get off the throttle, and then the RPMs drop down, so the car is just coasting or sailing, however you want to describe that, and then the engine basically shuts off. So this works very, very well. This MHEV system, pretty good, and we've tested it also in the A3 hatch and also in the VW Golf and also in Leon, and we could really score realistic consumption figures between 5 and 6 liters on 100 kilometers. So that's the higher 40 mpg regions, both US and UK, or UK of course always a little bit higher than in the figure because it's a different unit, but really satisfied here with the MHEV system in the 1.5 ETSI. And once again we have the adaptive suspension here, the DCC, dynamic chassis control. Wait a minute, does Audi also call it that way? No, I think they just call it adaptive suspension here. That's the way VW calls it. But of course it's the same hardware, and it really gives you again a good balance. So if you want it a little bit sportier, then you go to the dynamic mode. If you want it a little bit more comfortable, long-term comfort, then you stick with the normal driving modes. And indeed the adaptive suspension here is quite a notable difference from the base suspension. They also built very good base suspension. So if you want to have an A3, you really want to have an A3, but you can't spend too much money on it, then it's also fine just to go with the base A3. It's no problem. It won't be a bad vehicle at all then. But adaptive suspension is of course a nice feature to go for to make it more comfortable and also to give you more choice actually for the driving situations. And once again, when I was driving here, in a rather subtle way, again, closing to the 5.5 liter on 1 kilometers fuel economy is really very, very good. Then you can also go to the dynamic mode. In this case, then the steering here gets a little bit stiffer, so a little bit more resistance, and also the suspension stiffens up. So when I'm running over these huge systems covers, then I also feel that the suspension is a little bit stiffer, but still it would be a good compromise between comfort and sportiness. We have the 18-inch wheels mounted here. Of course, if you want a little bit softer in the ride, then you would go for the smaller wheels, 16 or 17, but the 18, of course, they look really cool. And again, they're not the biggest choice, and these 18 here still enable you to stick with the adaptive suspension option. So that is then still possible. Also, VW Golf and Audi A3, if you drive it with the 150 horsepower engine, told you earlier, they include the multi-link rear axle, so independent suspension in the rear, and that gives you an additional comfort if you compare it to the Seat Leon and the Skoda Octavia, which do not have that with the 150 horsepower version or the Cupra Ateca. So you need then a higher horsepower version of Leon and Octavia for that. And so, because so far we've compared all these four siblings with similar horsepower specs, A3 and Golf are more comfortable than with the same engine level. Definitely very interesting, and probably also a reason why you should go for an A3 and the VW Golf, at least with the 150 horsepower engine. So I think here this engine we're driving, the 1.5 TSI, ETSI with the MF system, is probably the engine to go for here now with the new A3 and also with the new Golf and so on. So heading now out a little bit to the countryside, beautiful route we picked here for you today. And once again here in this slalom you can see how agile the car is. In the normal driving mode there is a little bit of rolling and leaning, but that's also fine. And here in the dynamic mode, suspension is a little bit stiffer. And again, with a base A3, I also expect the car, that the suspension has some movement, because that's also somewhat a comfort feature, definitely. I see everything, by the way, pretty well here in the head-up display in front of me. Also, when I have a GPS route set, I see the next intersection and so on. So it's a very helpful system. Also one of the good options to go for. Going back to the auto mode. And once again, a very silent experience, one of the most silent experiences here in the compact segment. And I would really say that this car is probably benchmark here in the compact segment. It's, the stuff, everything here inside, it feels premium. You get a lot of different features, and the ride is comfortable and sporty at the same time. Voice input wise, Mercedes leads the way. Then comes BMW. The natural voice input works best with Mercedes and BMW. And it's a nice house with a Q8 in front of the door. But here, you can use some voice input, like for changing the temperature. That works from time to time. But wait a minute, not with this system, I think. Yes. Let's just try it. Change temperature to 22 degrees. Let's see. Not sure if this system can already do that.
Please give me a search term.
No, rather relies on the GPS commands than, for example, if you want to go somewhere with the GPS. So indeed, that's where, for example, new BMW 1 Series is better, or the Mercedes A-Class and so on. Have to live with that actually. Other than that, driving-wise and quality-wise from the interior, I think this is better than the Mercedes A-Class. Every car of these, they have their own special emphasis. Now we are at about 100 kilometers an hour, so about 60 miles an hour, and still so silent here in this vehicle, and also very stable on the road at the same time. So it's giving me such a positive driving feeling and also a very neutral handling. I probably feel just, from a very subjective feeling that the drive here in the A3 sedan is so far the best of all the siblings. I feel now when running straight and so on that the car is a little bit better on the road, you know, a little bit more sovereign on the road, how I like to describe it. So driving wise, actually, probably then the A3 sedan would be my choice to go for from all A3, Golf, Leon and Octavia and so on. Before I said that Leon and Octavia were a little bit better in running straight because of the longer wheelbase, but here this sedan with the shorter wheelbase actually, yeah, pretty interesting. Of course there will also be the A3L in certain markets, so the long wheelbase version of the Audi A3 sedan. It really then depends on the market you are buying the car in. At least all Europe will get here the short version, and I think the US as well. China, of course, will get the long wheelbase version. They always get the long wheelbase version of any car, basically. Assistance systems, we have a blind spot monitor. It's included here in the side mirror. That is also very well done. At the moment we're not in an Autobahn situation, and the adaptive cruise control is still set with a separate column here left next to the steering wheel, and it also has, when you go for the high spec adaptive cruise assist with lane guidance, so that you're actively being kept in the lane. And I tested this system also earlier and it's working very well. Also you know, a smooth assisting so that you're not being interfered by the steering wheel too much actually. So I really like what they've done right here. Some people want to drive faster than allowed. So, but then I can also show you the rear view camera. It's actually very good. That was a cross traffic alert, really well done. So when sometimes the system is realizing it even before you saw it actually. So that's definitely helpful. Yeah, just one look over the shoulder, because I want to show you one more acceleration here. Talked about efficiency and so on, but not about the performance. So let's go to the dynamic mode, and then the gears are turned up higher actually, later shifting up, earlier shifting down. At the same time, what you can always do is, if you're just in a normal mode, for example, pull the DSG shifting lever backwards, then you can go from the D mode to the S mode. So that's then the sports shifting mode, so to say, and then the same thing is actually happening. So now we get to once more to the road where we can drive a little bit faster and see what we can do with this 1.5 TSI. The acceleration figure is 8.4 seconds from 0 to 100. So dynamic mode from 20 kilometers an hour. Let's just accelerate it out. Plop, 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour. You see here, that's definitely enough performance. And you also heard it stayed really in a very low gear. So this happens then in the S mode. The engine felt, and you heard it, probably a little bit stressed. Of course, not a performance engine, that's not how it's laid out to be. But you see, when you need the power, it's still already there. It is front wheel drive only here, at least this engine. It depends then on sedan or hatch and versions and market. This platform also enables an all-wheel drive for the performance model for sure, and also for certain engine variants, but remains to be seen which one. For example, with the hatchback, there's the 150 horsepower engine diesel, which can also be bought with the all-wheel drive. But we see more engine versions will be introduced from time to time. Now at a little higher speed here in the corner, dynamic mode, a little bit stiffer as for suspension. Once again, a very good feeling here, good feedback from the steering wheel, so you really feel at home with this vehicle. And even just cruising here on countryside roads is a lot of fun with this car, definitely. So here when we drive a little bit fast, let's go back to the normal driving mode and let's check out if we can have the adaptive cruise control right there. Also keeping the distance to the car in front of us. And now adaptive cruise control with a lane keeping assist. So far so good. Wow, that was cool. I actually trusted, I was keeping hands on the steering wheel that I can interfere, but that was quite a challenge now, because on the right side there was no wide line, there was just like the bushes, and still the car realized that and kept the car in the lane. Please don't do this test if you're not prepared to do it so and have experience. And I always keep my hands on the steering wheel, of course, that it could interfere, but I also want to test the assistance systems that actually, can I trust in these? Yeah, but never trust 100% in this. But we also want to find out what is the performance of these assistance systems. And so far, everything we've tested with the assistance systems here is really also top notch. So, all the features, comfort, sport, and assistance systems, noise insulation, and so on and so on. Everything so far, and especially considering the competitors in this segment, really top notch here with the A3. And yes, I can just change the temperature without doing something in that screen. That's so good. It's really a relief that this is one of the cars that is still able to do that. And now let's compare the diesel TDI 150 horsepower. Let's start with the acceleration dynamic mode, and I'll start from about 30 kilometers an hour, S shifting mode, and I'll hammer the throttle. Stop, that's it, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. So also here definitely powerful enough. And acceleration wise, there is no major difference than here from diesel and the petrol. This one here, 8.4 seconds to the 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour as well. So you feel that the diesel power sets in a little bit later, but then there's definitely strong torque. Of course, the sound is also different, but I wouldn't say that the petrol sounded that much better actually. So yeah, I would say it really depends. So sound-wise, I think it's not the most crucial point here. And also the general sound or noise insulation is of course the very same. We also have the adaptive suspension, the optional one in these vehicles, so the driving then again is just equal. And again, what a pleasant driving experience here, very dynamic and comfortable at the same time. So should you go for the petrol or the diesel if you have the choice? I mean, the driving characteristic again is a little bit different because the petrol in the lower speed regions is a little bit more spontaneous than in the higher speed region. The diesel has some advantage, so it depends on the usage then. I would say if you drive a lot of kilometers on the motorway and the more kilometers you drive and the higher in speed, then probably the diesel will be the favorable one. And when you have more city driving, less kilometers or miles in general, then it would rather be the petrol. It also depends on taxation in your country, for example. Here you also have to fill the AdBlue for the SCR cleaning. That's about 15,500 kilometers, it tells me here now, for the next recharge. So yeah, and I mean, fuel economy wise, of course the petrol already scored very good fuel economy figures. The diesel will be a little bit more efficient, so you can also reach some 50 mpg then, or some figures below 5 liters on 100 kilometers. So that is possible. So I would say 1 to 2 liters on 1 kilometers less with the diesel is possible if you compare it to the petrol engine. And what's always very important with the comparison diesel and petrol, so the petrol engine can be very efficient, but if you really hammer it, the consumption will go very high. With the diesels is the way that they are a little bit more efficient in general, but then also this span between minimum and maximum consumption is smaller. And that then pays off when you really hammer these engines, when you drive a really high speed on the motorway, for example, then the diesel will be even more fuel saving than the petrol engine. However, the diesel are usually higher in the entry price. Then in some countries you save money at the fuel station, but the taxation, for example, in Germany is then higher again for the diesel, for the annual taxation. So yeah, you really have to calculate. They both have extensive particle filters. Diesel also traditionally SCR cleaning. So for once, the particle filters against the fine dust, and then here, as I said, the diesel also for the SCR, for the N or X particles. So meanwhile, what comes out there is relatively clean. Of course, not as clean as with an electric vehicle, but for combustion engines, the development is now actually quite sufficient. This diesel scandal really led to real clean cars now, as for the combustion engine. Of course, it will just be like short or midterm thing, but these scandals then help that they cannot hide anything anymore, and more people look at it, what's really happening. So, and then we all actually then later on profit from it. So here at the moment I'm also at about 4.5 liters more kilometers, so that's actually pretty good. Again, in this efficiency mode, this really helps to reduce the fuel consumption because we have more of this rolling or sailing effect, and this doesn't happen that often when you are just in the auto or in the comfort mode, for example. So if you take it calm and slow, I can really recommend also that you use this mode. Here once again, when I go off throttle, RPMs drop down, and sometimes even then more when the car is rolling and rolling. Once again, good impressions, and I wouldn't mind driving either engine, so both here with a very good performance. And now to the conclusion for today with the all-new Audi A3, here today as the A3 sedan or A3 Limousine. Well, first of all, it's more elegant in the styling than the hatchback model. At least I think so. A lot of others think so too, I think. But it really depends on what you prefer. Do you prefer the hatchback or the sedan? Of course, you can pick. Here it's a little bit longer, so yeah, not as easy to park as with the hatchback. Still compact dimensions. But the advantage then is that you have a longer trunk, however not that easy to access than with the hatchback. So yeah, it's all about pro and con definitely. It really depends also on the markets, for example. So the US will get this sedan here, whereas they won't get the hatchbacks. And some markets rather prefer the sedans, some others prefer the hatchback. Definitely overall elegant styling here. On the interior we have a high build quality. People say, yeah, here and there have been some coast cuttings. Maybe yes, but the overall build quality impression on the interior is still very, very high, I think. So if they did some coast cuttings in at parts where you don't really feel that much of a difference. However, still a good climate unit here, and that's also a big advantage to the other siblings. You can still have a manual climate unit, and that would be also one key factor. I would pick this one here over the others. And also great as for the seating choices, visually attractive and also animal friendly, and even more to that, even more better resource, so they have recyclable materials, so they also make a step forward as for sustainability for the interior materials all over the vehicle, as we shown you earlier. And also this new 1.5 TSI with the mild hybrid system, also very good in the fuel economy, so you can score some 5 to 6 liters or more kilometers, which is higher in the 40 mpg range. So I think as for the sustainability, one of the best vehicles that is here on the market yet from Audi. Driving wise, also very good on the road, a neutral handling, sporty, although this is not a special sports version, and also very comfortable at the same time, with this optional adaptive suspension, which you should also go for when you can afford it. It's one of the most important options here, I think, when you want to increase the comfort even further. So a good compromise between all the things you might want to experience in everyday driving life. Overall, a very, very good package for this very vehicle. The only thing, of course, remains with the price. Yeah, I would like to take it over a lot of different other compact vehicles, but it's also one of the most expensive ones. That's the catch. So, thank you so much for tuning in today. Also check out the hatch review and also some of the competitor cars inside and outside the Volkswagen Corporation. See you there.